It's been 2 years since the startling events of October 7th, 2023. 2 years since the nation of Israel waged war on itself and on the people who live within its own borders. This time, it did so on a global stage. The headlines came fast. Shocking, graphic, impossible to look away from. Politicians, pastors, and civilians alike rushed to post their allegiance. Israeli flags filled our feeds. Israel has a right to defend itself, they said. But what happens when that story, the one we all believed in those first 24 hours, starts to unravel? When the echo of headlines fades and the evidence starts to speak for itself, that October 7th wasn't the beginning. It was the beginning of the end. That many Jewish people and Jewish leaders around the world have condemned Israel's actions. That most of those horrifying headlines, the ones meant to justify everything that followed, were fabricated. The question isn't, what side are you on? It's, what will you do when the truth outgrows the narrative you were given? Because behind the politics, behind the prophecy charts, and behind the hashtags are humans, real people, caught in the crossfire of our silence. So we're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to ask what it means to stay human when our hearts grow calloused in the name of God. This isn't a debate or a theology lecture. It's two people trying to untangle what we were taught, what we've learned, and what love requires of us now. This is You Don't Know. And today, we're talking about Palestine. Hey, Linds.
Oh, hey, D. We do that, don't we?
We're back.
No. Start over.
Okay.
Start over.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's been 700 and... How many days? Wait, 704 days.
Since we have recorded together. Is that right?
Wow, yes.
I thought it was more like 1,356 days.
That's probably right. That's probably more accurate.
Okay. I really don't know how to start this episode because it's such a heavy topic.
Yeah.
So how do we start this episode?
Just like that.
Okay. So today's topic is one that is very difficult to talk about. If you have not heard of this, I guess you're hiding under a rock. Is that a saying?
It is a saying.
Okay, you're hiding under a rock because it's been everywhere for all of 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's why we're actually publishing this episode on this day, what will be October 7th, 2025.
Right.
That will be 2 years since the start of the, or not the start, but the start of the major conflict that's currently happening in Gaza, in Israel, in Palestine. And, I did forget to say this to you. So I don't think some of our platforms like the word genocide.
Okay.
So even that's interesting to me that some platforms don't like that word because why wouldn't you like that word?
Yeah.
It's something that's happened in human history. It's a real word of real things that happen to real people. So why would you nix stuff that contains that word? Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's start on the conspiracy theory trail.
Let's start right now.
Okay, here's my idea. We're going to do a whole huge overview of what is happening, some history behind it, and I guess why it should matter to you. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the big picture, that's what we're doing today. Okay. We're talking about Gaza, we're talking about Israel, and we're talking about why it should matter to you. Okay, so we want to start by saying, as we do in most of our episodes, that we are not experts. We never claim to be experts on a topic. We just know the things that we see and the things we're learning and the things that we're passionate about. And we're committed to diving deeper into those things and finding out as much as we can. And honestly, It takes all of 5 minutes to do a Google search or a TikTok search on what has been going on or what is going on in one of these places to at least start your framework of curiosity.
Yeah.
Because you can't see one thing without asking 15 questions. And then if you just take one of those 15 questions and explore it, you will have 75 more questions. And it takes no time and it takes almost no effort. But we're going to kind of trace our process and how we got to where we are today with it.
Yeah.
And you can do with that what you want. But we're not experts. We're not pretending to be like political science majors or anything like that. We don't know a lot about foreign governments or how our government operates even. We just know we see something, we ask a question, we follow the rabbit, and we come to a place where we are.
Yeah, and we're just really good at asking questions.
Yeah. I think that's a good label I would like to have over me. A really good question asker.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
What did we know, hear, and or believe about Israel?
Well, for me, we already know that I grew up in a very conservative home as a pastor's kid. And so very churched. How I viewed Israel was the verses that we hear a lot of, like, those who bless Israel will be blessed. So I viewed it as that Israel as a country is special. It's chosen, and that basically we always want to be on the side of Israel. Always want to be an ally to Israel.
Who's we?
Christians.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and I would say America.
Mm.
I grew up with that understanding. And it's hard for me, my memory is bad, so it's hard for me to know exactly like when I would have picked that up.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up in Christian school and times of homeschool, like, the American flag, we're very patriotic.
Mm-hmm. And I was raised very Southern Baptist, very normal for our location currently. Definitely evangelical, conservative, Bible Belt, Southern, not a surprise. And very much so raised in dispensationalism, rapture theology.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember reading the Left Behind series in late middle school and just thinking, this is the center of my faith.
Wow.
These things are going to happen, and I have to be one of these, the forefront of one of these people. And it just shot me right into it. And I mean, I have relatives who are considered experts on it. Like, they go teach classes.
Like end times prophecy?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So much of that, I didn't really I'm not an expert on it. I'm not teaching classes on it. I don't know how Israel falls in all of that, but I know that it was the belief that it was the epicenter. Is that a word?
Yeah.
The epicenter of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Jews were special and set apart in a different way. And just because they didn't believe in Christ, they were still God's people. And it was this whole thing. So all of my understanding of modern day Israel was wrapped up in end times theology.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would say additionally, my understanding of Israel and the current lens, like what I was given, is the conflict that we have today is a direct result of Isaac and Jacob.
Ishmael and Isaac, yeah.
Isaac and Ishmael.
Wait. The conflict that we have today.
Yes.
You knew about. What did you?
That they would always be at war.
Who?
Like, Isaac represented the Jewish nation.
Okay.
And Ishmael represented I don't know if it's Palestine, but it's like
Arab nations.
Yes.
Yeah. Wait. You grew up understanding that there was a conflict?
Yes. And that there will
in
always
Israel or in that
Middle East.
In the Middle East.
And that
okay.
it's almost like pointless for us to fight against the conflict for peace, because there won't be peace until the Antichrist.
Yeah.
And then that's when we know, the end times is here.
Yes, that means it's
Because
coming,
there's peace
it's
in the Middle
time.
East.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So did you know that there was a conflict happening within the borders of modern day Israel?
I don't know. I mean, like when I was a kid?
Like any time before October 7th?
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Okay.
October 7th was the beginning of my understanding of what's going on right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't know.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to say, I would say like all my life, there has been this underlying and at some times raging conflict, and that there always has been and there always will be until the end.
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay. That's different.
Which
okay.
comes into play later with like the whole apathy, because I feel
Yes.
like it has played a part in just like, well, what's even the point? Like what?
Yeah. Because it's happening. It's supposed to happen.
It's supposed to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
I know I'm rabbit trailing, but it kind of makes me think it's the same kind of thing with predestination and all of that other kind of stuff. Like if this is just going to happen and it leads me to apathy, that's not like, that can't be the result that God intended.
Right.
So
no, I think that's a great place to go, because if that was the case, then you're just white knuckling it until the rapture happens.
right.
And is that what he put us here for? Is that who he told us to be and how to live and how? Because I feel like so much of the end times theology is around these things happening and almost no acknowledgement of anything that Christ said or how Christ existed in the world.
Yeah.
Like, which one is your center? And I did say at one point, like, I felt like the end times stuff was the center for me. Middle school. That's crazy.
When you say center, it's like that's what is informing your...
My moves, how I see the world, how I function in the world, how I treat people, what my end goals and prerogatives are, is all based in that. But then I look over here now, I would say my center is definitely not end times theology in any capacity. Like I almost give it 0 of my brain space, because what difference does that make in the here and now if I'm trying to live and love like Jesus?
Yeah, and deeper than that is like what is beyond just the end times? What's driving you beyond end times prophecy? Like what's really at the root of what's driving you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Is it fear of what's going to happen or when it's going to happen, or which we definitely are commanded not to have a spirit of fear.
Right. Yeah.
So you would say your center now is
Jesus. Am I moving closer to Jesus or further away from Jesus in anything that I do? Is my life rotating around the practices and positions of Jesus, or am I off on another trajectory? I would challenge people to ask themselves, what is at the center of how they function in the world?
Yeah.
Is it prophecies? Is it nationalism? Is it, or patriotism? Is it the way of Jesus? Because those are 3 separate paths. Also, the people who, these kinds of things that are being argued over don't change anything. They don't change how you look like Jesus. They don't change what your neighbor is experiencing. They don't bring heaven to earth any faster. It's just mindless chatter.
Right.
It's almost
noise.
Yeah, it's noise. Yeah. So this isn't about politics or prophecy charts, but it is about people, real people who we would consider our neighbors because they live on this planet with us.
Yeah.
They may not be in North Georgia, but our North Georgia dollars do affect them. So we should talk about that. And so it's about people and it's about the character of God.
Yeah.
So let's do the thing.
Okay.
Okay, here are some common phrases that people say to justify Israel's actions right now. Okay, so we're going to start with like the church person's perspective, I think.
Okay.
And what I'm going to show in this is how you can justify the other side biblically as well. So the first thing is God gave the land to Israel, to the Jews forever. They were there first. And it shows that, yes, the promise shows up in Genesis, but the covenant was conditional on justice and faithfulness. Mm-hmm. So, yes, God promised these things on some conditions. And the entire story of the Bible is about how they failed at those things, justice and faithfulness, over and over and over and over again.
Which is the whole story of Jesus and his coming.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll let that stand on its own. Next one. Genesis says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Exactly like you said. Mm-hmm. We have to stand with Israel. Mm-hmm. Israel is God's chosen nation. We can't go against God's plan, is the quote. In the Old Testament, election was always about vocation, not favoritism. Israel was chosen to be a light to the nations. And once again, when they failed in justice, God brought judgment, which is all the prophets. Mm-hmm. So, and then the New Testament kind of widens the chosenness. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, said to a multi-ethnic church. Gentiles are grafted in. So, let that stand on its own. So, yes, you can take things that are written in Scripture and you can say, well, the Bible says. Mm-hmm. The Bible also can be argued to justify all kinds of things. Right. Polygamy. God, the heroes that God put in charge were liars, cheaters, thieves. So you could justify being a liar, a cheater, and a thief. You could justify being a narcissist. It's biblical. Honestly, mass murder, stoning people for doing minor things. Really, you're going to drag someone outside and go grab a bunch of rocks and throw. You can justify anything through the Bible. And people have. Right. Nazi Germany used Scripture to justify what they were doing. Yeah. The KKK used Scripture to justify what they were doing. The Holy Wars was all about Scripture. Yeah. You can justify anything with Scripture. You can also combat anything with Scripture. Mm-hmm. So it's not about what does the Bible say. It's about the character of God and the character of Jesus. And who they told us their people will be. Mm. So I think we really have to rally around that.
Yeah, and by their people, what do you mean?
The people of God.
Yes.
The people of God. In Old Testament, it's Israel. Mm-hmm. They're called Israel. But when they're saying Israel, they're talking about the descendants of Jacob, Israel. It's God's people who he committed himself to. And we know through Jesus that expanded to everyone, anyone. Doesn't matter your ethnicity, where you're from, what color you are, who your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was. It doesn't matter. Right. Everyone, anyone, all day long. Yeah. And so God's people are us. Yeah. And this is where we kind of get to, I think it's important to talk through Shema a little bit. Because, unless you have something else to say about it.
Go.
Okay. So, because the Shema was at the center of the Jewish prayer. They prayed it multiple times a day. And then even Jesus, when he was asked what the greatest commandment was, he quotes the Shema and then adds to it a little bit. So let's hear what the Shema says. Okay. The Shema is Deuteronomy 6:4-5. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this. This is Jesus's.
Yeah.
This is Jesus' version. Hold on. It's hard. I'm having to quote it because I've said it in Hebrew for so long that I don't remember the words in English.
Really?
Yes.
What is it in Hebrew?
Shema, O Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yahweh, your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall Ahava, Yahweh, your Elohim, with all of your lev, with all of your nefesh, and with all of your meod. So, but that is with all of your heart and all of your, what is it? Soul and with all of your strength.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let's circle around the word lev.
Okay.
To love the Lord with all of your heart. So this is the central prayer in Judaism for millennia, and the central commandment according to Jesus.
Yep.
So here it is, the center of the center of the center. With all of your lev, with all of your heart. Well, lev in Hebrew does not mean heart, feelings, with all of your passions. I mean, that is part of it, yes. But it means all of your human intellectual activity, with all of your knowledge and understanding, with all of your connections and wisdom, with all of your discernment, and your ability to discern between truth and error, your conscience, with all of your feelings and emotions, yes, but how you make choices, your thoughts, your desires, your ideas, your longings. It's everything that puts your mind to your body. It's every action that you take. It's all of it.
You.
Yeah, it's you. It's the thing that makes you uniquely you. Other than your hair color and your eye color. It is your uniqueness to love God with your all of it. Your intellect, your thoughts, your emotions, your mind, your everything.
Your personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your whole personality. And so to love, according to Jesus, who adds on, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. To love your neighbor with your lev means that you have to be a person. We have to be people who think through things.
Yeah.
And make decisions on behalf of our neighbors. And we're going to get to that in a little bit too, of like sitting there in silence is making a decision.
Right.
Being apathetic is making a decision. Yeah. Choosing not to engage because you think that this is fulfilling prophecy is making a decision. You're making decisions. You're loving your neighbor or hating your neighbor.
Right. You are choosing something.
Yes.
Action or inaction.
Yeah.
But both are action.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Another point to apathy and silence.
Okay.
And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who does not love conflict at all.
Yeah.
So my knee-jerk reaction is to stay out of the argument, it's hard for me to even like say something definitively.
Yeah.
When we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But silence. So a lot of times silence and staying out of things is a form of self-protection. And so that's a really good check, I think, for someone who finds themselves in action or choosing to stay out of discussions and things like this, is why. Why are you choosing to stay silent?
Yeah.
Just protecting yourself?
Yes, yeah.
Because that's where I find myself a
Yeah.
lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it feels like an absolute thing to say, everybody has to act. But we'll get to it a little bit later of different options. Not everybody has to do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and one more perspective too is, depending on where you're coming from, it feels like you're being unfaithful because of these things that we were taught from the Old Testament about Israel and how it may be relevant today. It feels like you're being unfaithful when you question what Israel is doing. So I think those are things that people may be wrestling with. Like they're afraid to say something because then it presents them as being unfaithful to their belief system or being unfaithful to their church and the things that they're being taught. But then the question becomes, who are you being faithful to? How are we going to measure faithfulness here?
Yeah.
To a system?
Right. And that brings it back to like, what's your center?
Yeah.
What's at the center of your faith?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it the way, the life, the existence, the teachings of Jesus? Or is it being wrapped up in the drama, because it is dramatic, of prophecy, end times theology? Or is it in your identity as an American citizen? Or really sit with it and think through what's your center, what's the most important. And then once you've determined what's the most important, you have to think, do my actions match that?
Yeah.
is everything flowing out of me matching what I want to be my center? Because if it's not, that's time for adjustment.
And that's obviously then not your center.
Right. Yeah, that's checks and balances.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. Okay, so we read all these things that the Bible says about Israel and why we justify Israel's actions or whatever decisions Israel makes, really. And we have talked about how, and there are many more than that, many more. I just chose a couple. But we also showed how the Bible can also be used to justify the exact opposite of what you're saying. And that can happen in every instance across the board. So just from let's talk about like a genealogical perspective here, or an offspring perspective here.
Okay.
Palestinians have more ethnic and genetic ties to ancient Israel than modern Israelis.
Okay, than modern Israelis.
Yes. So current Israel is not the Israel of the Bible.
Current Israel, the state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so important to
yes, clarify what you're saying. Yeah. And the people who are native and indigenous to that land actually do have genetic ties to ancient Israel. The people who make up modern day Israel are not from there.
Mm-hmm. Where are they from?
Mostly Eastern European countries.
Because of I don't know, but like the migration or something that happened?
Yeah. So it pretty much started, okay, that's the perfect segue. Let me say this just in case, because this comes from a professor who is absolutely a historical professor, and he is brilliant. The majority of Palestinians are of Jewish descent. The majority of Palestinians, the people who are being annihilated right now, are of Jewish descent and are ethnically more Jewish than the European and American Jews who went and created Israel. So every time a Palestinian is murdered by an Israeli, a person who's more Jewish is murdered by a person who's less Jewish. And we're going to get into why that's a very complicated statement, but it is. It's true that the Israeli is practicing Judaism or is a secular Jew. And it's true that those Palestinians who are Christians and Muslims, whose ancestors converted to Christianity and Islam, but it's just a weird, ironic twist that the people who are closer related genetically to ancient Israel are the people who are being annihilated right now.
That is mind-boggling.
Yes, it is.
How genealogically, how is that possible? Because if I'm Jewish, no matter where my parents migrated to or my ancestors migrated to, my bloodline traces back to ancient Israel or ancient Jews, right?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Yeah. Because there are multiple times, and it shows throughout Scripture that ancient Israel is scattered, right? It's called the diaspora, and they've been scattered to other places. They do the thing; they get busy with people of other genetic history or genetic origins,
right?
But the people who stayed in the land are obviously, because they're intermarrying amongst themselves, and they really could trace themselves 2,000 plus years ago, because that's such a big thing in the Jewish world anyway. Let's talk about that. Okay. So the history of the land. Let's just start with the history of the land itself. Prior to, not the full history, not the world history of this area of the world.
Settle in.
Yes, no. We're talking about prior to what became modern day Israel. It was called Palestine, and it was full of Jews, Christians, and Muslims who lived in relative peace amongst themselves They were neighbors. It's like right here, I might have a Catholic, I might have an atheist, I might have a Buddhist, and I'm still going to ask any of them if our kids can play together, and I'm going to ask them for a cup of sugar if I run out, and which I'm not baking anytime soon, so that's not going to happen. But like we live in peace. We have no problem with each other. We worship separately. That's fine. It was exactly like that. A lot of political things happened where colonizers took over the space, and who was making decisions for the land shifted, ebbed and flowed all over the place. But the people who lived there, the people who can trace their ancestry back, were Jews, Christians, and Muslims who lived in peace amongst each other.
Okay.
So let's talk about a couple of our terms that we're using here. Judaism and Zionism. Okay. And we need to make this really, 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 really clear. Judaism does not equal Zionism. Zionism does not equal Judaism. They are different things. There is overlap between them for some people.
Sure.
But they are not the same things. And to question what Zionism is doing and has done is not anti-Semitic. We are not questioning people because their religion is Judaism.
Right. We're not questioning their value as individuals or humans.
Yes, yeah. We're not saying that everything is the fault of the Jews when we're talking about Zionism. These are separate terms. Okay, so let's start with Judaism. Judaism is very hard to define because you can be born into it. You can be ethnically Jewish. You can be religiously Jewish. You can be historically Jewish. You can be a secular Jew, a non-religious, non-practicing religious Jew. And even Jews themselves, like I've listened to several podcasts interviewing rabbis. We're going to link them to this episode, and they're fascinating and so, so good. Because there are Jews everywhere who completely disagree what's happening.
Right.
With what's happening in Israel right now.
Right.
Completely disagree. So, but it's hard to define Judaism because I can convert and be a Jew with zero ethnic ties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I can't trace up anywhere in my lineage that is Jewish.
But I can just convert to Judaism
today. And then you have a right to return to the land of Israel. Side note, not going there. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But on their laws.
Based on Israeli
law.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You would have a right to go there and to live there as a citizen, have dual citizenship, and do the whole thing.
Which I guess would be the same thing as if I was Chinese and I became an American citizen. I would have the right to live here.
Yes. Okay. So there's the traditional definition of Judaism. A Jew is someone who is born to a Jewish mother, or someone who converts to Judaism under religious procedures. Okay. A broader modern understanding is many Jewish communities also recognize patrilineal descendant. The father is Jewish and the person is raised Jewish. Some people identify Jewish culturally, ethnically, historically, even if they don't practice the religion. Already said that. The Israeli definition, which this is relatively new because Israel as a state, as the current country, has only existed since 1948. Mm-hmm. Under Israel's law of return, anyone with at least one Jewish grandparent, a convert can claim citizenship.
So is Israeli and how do you say Judeo? Like I still don't understand. I feel like a Jew and Israeli. That's not the same thing because there can be a Jew in America. Yeah, like an American Jew.
Correct. Yeah.
So
let's talk Zionism. Let's talk Zionism. Okay. So Zionism actually started in the tricklings of it were the early 1800s.
Okay.
But mid 1800s. This is relatively new in human history, this idea of Zionism.
Okay.
This is not, people say it's a biblical idea. It has not existed until 1800s-ish. Okay. Zionism is the idea that Jewish people who were facing violence and exclusion across Europe weren't just a religion, but a nation. And like other nations, they deserved their own country. Since their ancient roots were in the land of Israel, the movement focused on building a safe Jewish homeland there where they could govern themselves and live free from persecution. But when it's so hard to define what a Jew is, what makes a Jew, now you want to create a nation for these people. That'd be like saying Buddhists deserve their own country. New Zealand, everybody get out. Only the Buddhists are going there. But Buddhism is a belief system.
Right.
Judaism isn't necessarily, it is that, but it is not necessarily just that. You can also be ethnically Jewish and have you be an atheist.
Well, that's tricky.
Yeah. Yes. It's never happened before that someone has said, we deserve our own plot of land for us.
Because of what we believe or how we identify with our faith.
Mm-hmm. So there's nothing to compare it to.
Right.
It's this crazy thing. And because Jews absolutely have experienced great persecution all throughout human history at the hands of some really horrible people and systems, they said, we're not safe anywhere. We need our own space to do what we want. And side note, they considered a lot of different places. Uganda, which back then was actually where kind of Kenya is. So that area. Argentina, they considered there. And a couple groups actually started moving there. And now they have a little Jewish hub there.
Wow.
And then Israel, Palestine, because of the biblical ties to the land. But the people who lived there, Islam also has the same Torah, many of the same Old Testament books that we have. The Christians obviously are tied to the land, and the Jews who lived there were tied to the land. So, all right, that set the stage.
Okay.
All right, so do you have any thoughts, ideas, questions about that?
No, I'm just being a sponge.
It's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
It's wild that this is how it started.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is through the 1800s, so again, Jews were facing horrible discrimination in lots of different places. And so the idea of Zionism pops up, that they needed a safe haven for them. And so they picked Israel and they started trickling into Israel. And they were welcomed as basically refugees, to this place. Well, then World War I, there's a little surge of people. And then World War II, obviously the biggest surge. So the number of Jews in Palestine was still smaller than the number of Christians and Muslims. So they were a minority still then. Well, then some, and I'm not going through the whole history because I'm not trying to pretend I know everything. I did a lot of research on it yesterday. It's there. You can find it yourself. Actually, the UN, I believe, actually said, we're going to make this a dual state for a portion to be Palestine and a portion to be Israel. And for Israel, the Jews will live there if they want to leave. If they already are there and are Jewish and want to go into the Jewish portions, the Israeli portions, then they can. But the rest, the Christians and the Muslims, are going to stay in the Palestinian side. As time passed, Israel kept expanding the borders, moving further and further out of their territory. There were several wars, uprisings, and Israel kept expanding their borders, and they kept making new settlements, and they're still doing this to this day, where they'll run into Palestinian land and build homes, and just basically, it's like a little militia, defend that land and say, you're out, I'm in. And they're still doing that to this day. So Palestine had their territory, and Israel had their territory, and it was not good. Because the Palestinians this is their ancestral land. Their families had lived here for millennia. They work the olive groves. They work the land, are being butted out of their homes, off of their farm property, their occupation, and are being scooted further out. The Palestinian territories get smaller and smaller, and then all of a sudden, Israel, it turns into an apartheid state where Palestinians aren't allowed to cross certain lines, not allowed to walk on certain roads, not allowed to go to certain places. And Israelis have free range of motion. They can do whatever they want in and out. And then it gets worse and worse, and there's like huge attacks on, the two areas are now Gaza and the West Bank, and huge attacks on Gaza. And now all of a sudden Gaza has this giant concrete wall surrounding the entire thing where you literally cannot get in or out. There's the sea on one side and a wall. Military everywhere. Everything is monitored. Everyone knows where you're going, or the military knows where you're going, what you're doing. They can allow you to pass or not pass, to go to your job, to go to medical appointments, to go to all these things. They have to approve your ability to leave if you have like a medical emergency. Somebody in your family gets cancer and they need drastic treatment that they don't have inside the walls. They can delay and or not approve your right to leave at any time. And this is what's happening up to October 7th. Okay.
Of last year.
2023.
2023, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go through what modern day Gaza looked like prior to October 7th. We've said some of these things, but it's among the most densely populated places on the planet. It's many people refer to it as an open air prison, and they have for decades. Open air prison, but to say prison implies that there are prisoners, people who've done something wrong. So then they started trying to change the verbiage to open air concentration camp, is how bad it was. Israel controlled the food, the water, the food and water coming in and out, ingredients, medicines, fuel, everything's controlled by Israel. 95% of their water was undrinkable because either their wells were being bombed by Israel, or salt water was being mixed with their water, so they couldn't drink it. 95% of their water source, undrinkable. Exit permits for medical emergencies, often delayed or denied. Certain places, routes, Palestinians can't go. A lot of their farms, like their ancestral farmland that they have worked their entire existence, was outside of the wall. Mm-hmm. And so to get outside of the wall, they only allowed them to go at certain times of the year for so many days, and often then when they would go, they would not be approved and not be able to get a harvest, not be allowed to work their land, not be allowed to do anything with that property. I mean, it's abuse.
Yeah. They
are being abused, and abuse feels like a light word.
Right.
They had 4 to 12 hours a day of electricity. Israel's controlling the electricity coming in and out. Meanwhile, Israel, who's on the other side of the wall, is one of the wealthiest countries in the world.
Really?
With no issues, great water, no electrical issues, no problems with anything. So it's clearly being done to them. It's not for a lack of resources that these things are happening. Mm-hmm. It's being chosen for them. They would have rolling blackouts all the time, super heavy surveillance, religious persecution, constant. So if you go look up at just Google, what happened in the days prior to October 7th? It was just another day for the Palestinians. Israeli soldiers come into a mosque and just start beating the shit out of people for no reason. They're there to worship. They're there being peaceful. They're not messing with anybody. Walk into a mosque and start beating people. And there's endless footage of this happening. This has been happening for decades, where somebody's just walking down the street and they get accosted by a soldier, thrown up against a wall, searched. Their legs are spread farther than your legs can spread. They're kicking their phone across the way. They're knocking their head against the brick wall. Like they hate them. The Israelis have been trained to hate the Palestinians. It's a long-going narrative that all Palestinians are terrorists, and Even the children are going to turn into terrorists, so they're all terrorists. The women are going to breed and make more terrorists, and so we need to get rid of them. We need them to go away. And even there's tons of footage too, Google it, in Israeli schools. If a teacher brings up the subject of Palestinians, they'll ask these little children, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, if they ever came across a Palestinian, what would they do? I'd probably shoot him. I'd probably kill him. All the things they would do. And then the teacher's grinning, like, aren't we doing a good job in teaching these kids how to function in the world? And if you ever were to go to Israel and take a tour, if they ever take you to that side, taxi cab drivers, tour guides are constantly telling the foreigners or the visitors or whoever, don't talk to Palestinians. They'll rape you. They'll kill you. They'll murder you. They're terrorists. So there's this narrative going on where Israelis are terrified of Palestinians and to the point where they hate them. And do you know that Israel is like, I don't know what the proper term is, but all Israelis serve in the military, men, women, both. And so everyone has had the opportunity to serve in the West Bank and Gaza to 2 a.m. middle of the night, decide they're going to raid this Palestinian house, scare the bejeebies out of every child, person, grandmother living in there, make them huddle into a corner of a room, take over the house, and go on a watch. Sit there and watch the other Palestinian houses for no reason. They're terrorizing them.
Which is an interesting twist of the plot.
Yeah. So this has been going on for forever. The Palestinians literally do not have proper food and water, medical care. There are hospitals throughout, not very many of them. They're overloaded. They never have the proper resources that they need to treat people well. People are being denied medical care outside of Gaza, and on and on. And problems are happening in the West Bank too. They're not as severe as Gaza at all times, but there's like right now, they're still burning villages for no reason. Israelis will come through and light everything on fire. They'll come through, settlers will come in fully armed, these little militia groups of Israeli people who think this is our land and we're going to take it. They'll come in fully armed and say, get out. This isn't your house anymore. This is my house. And they just like get shot or leave. Constantly happening. Again, pushing the borders.
Right.
Is still doing the thing.
So, I'm not sure I realize, and probably we talked about this the last time I recorded it, but I thought the inciting event of October 7th was the action from Hamas on Israel. I didn't realize there was an event preceding that.
Many events, but they were normalized because it happened every single day. It happened constantly. But yes, that's the thing is when everybody said, well, if Hamas hadn't, but October 7th was when the pressure cooker exploded. It has been building and building and building since 1948 when Israel became a state.
This could just be my simple-mindedness, but like the Palestinian versus Hamas, like that's different. The people who did the attack on October 7th of the Israelis were Hamas, right?
Yes.
So how can we say this has been happening? I'm just trying to search for understanding. Like this has been happening to Palestinians and Christians, like just the normal inhabitants of West Bank and Gaza.
Yeah.
And then this has all been brewing, but Hamas are the ones doing the attack, which in my mind is a different faction of that area or those people. Like, because this is my understanding of Hamas. Like it's a separate faction of like terrorists.
Yeah.
But I could have the wrong understanding.
And it's a great thought and a great question. And my question to you and to anyone listening who's thinking the same thing would be, who is Hamas? Who's making up Hamas?
Yeah.
Who are the members of Hamas and how did they get there?
I'll ask you right back.
Well, we're going to come back to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's in the flow.
It's in the notes.
Yes, it's in the notes. Okay. So let's talk about what happened on October 7th, 2023. Okay.
Hit me.
Now, you may or may not be a conspiracy theorist. I don't even like calling it that anymore. I read a quote, I shared it, and everybody loved it because it's true. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist anymore, because when you're just taking evidence and you're stacking it up and you're like, that doesn't make sense, that's not a conspiracy. That means what we're being told and the evidence don't add up. That's not a conspiracy.
It's just questioning.
Yeah. It's just using your your intellect to say, wait, I'm not an idiot. Yeah. I can see that 1 and 1 do not make 75. Okay, let's do it. All right. So October 7th is, I'm just going to read. Me and Chat had many conversations. Chat GPT, my bestie. We had many conversations about this, but it's helpful because it can take something that's really condensed, extreme and wild and convoluted and make it super simple.
Yeah. Synthesize.
Yes. So here's what happened according to Chat on October 7th, 2023. Hamas and allied groups launched a surprise large-scale attack from Gaza into southern Israel. Militants broke through the border fence, stormed Israeli towns, kibbutzim, and a music festival, killing around 1,200 people and taking more than 200 hostages back to Gaza. Israel responded with massive airstrikes the same day, marking the start of the current Gaza war, the deadliest and most destructive round of fighting in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to date. Just brief overview. All right. So, do you remember some of the first things that you heard happened on October 7th? Some of the big headlines?
No, I don't remember headlines.
Okay.
I remember seeing images.
Yeah. Okay.
And it just was like terrorism.
Yes. Yeah. Did you hear about the beheaded babies?
Yeah.
What did you hear about that?
The babies were beheaded.
Yeah, they found a bunch of beheaded babies, some in ovens and different things like that. Did you hear about the rapes?
I think so.
The members of Hamas were raping people and disembowelment. Did you hear about that? So that is what we all heard at first. And to be fair, if you're hearing that kind of stuff is happening, no one's going to say, well, who are the members of Hamas doing that? That's not what we're trying to say. And also, every single one of those has been disproved. No babies were beheaded.
Really?
No women were raped. No one was disemboweled. The point and purpose of Hamas exiting that day, which we'll get to that in a second too, was to kidnap some people and take them back to Gaza. That was the point and purpose. Obviously, if you're swiping up somebody who doesn't want to be swiped, someone's going to be injured in all of it. But the point and purpose was not to cause mass casualties. You're looking at me so skeptically.
Well, I'm taking in all this information.
Yeah. And maybe I shouldn't speak to it like that. I'll say the main point and purpose was to kidnap.
Okay, I have to preface everything. 1,200 doesn't seem like some just casualties.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So one of the first questions that I asked, because let's all remember, let's like ground ourselves here for a second. We are coming at this. We are not Israelis. We are not Palestinians. We do not live in the Middle East. We are not Jews. We are not Arabs. We are not Muslims. We do not practice Judaism. This is not our territory. This is not our fight. We don't do the thing. But it is our fight. But we'll come back to that. Okay. So we do not know how things have happened and why they happen and the history. Like, I'm learning all of this through a Google search. And again, it took 5 seconds. Regardless. So one of the first questions I asked was, because I hear people are kidnapped and they've taken hostages. And I was like, wait, has this ever happened before where we take hostages? Historical perspective. Prior to October 7th, at least half a dozen major incidents and many smaller ones involved kidnappings or captures being used to force negotiations between the countries. This is
how they operate with each other.
Correct. Yeah. And let's keep in mind, Israel's one of the largest, most powerful, most well-funded militaries on the planet. Palestinians are living in an apartheid state. Their actions are controlled. Their food is controlled. Their water is controlled. They are being beaten. They are being murdered. They are being bombed for no reason all the time. They cannot practice their faith in peace. They cannot live in peace and health. And for as long as they can remember, it has been this way at the hand of Israel. And also keep in mind too, Palestinians may have been there first, but now it's the state of Israel. Israel is the government. Israel's the police. Israel's the military. They're refugees in their own country. How do you have are there American refugees in America? How does that even work?
Yeah.
That just like, again, big picture, how this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And is red flags all over the place. Okay. So we have done the kidnapping and capturing thing back and forth. We know 200 people have been taken hostage by Gaza, by Hamas, that are Israelis or foreign nationals even. Okay, let's talk about, has Israel kidnapped or taken captive any Palestinians? As of September, early October 2023, the same year, there were 5,200 to 5,300 Palestinians in prison.
From being kidnapped?
Yep. Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. 1,200 to 1,300 of them are held without any charges. Just people swiped off the street. 160 to 170 of them are children. Literal children taken off the street, not with their family members, not with a parent, not with their lawyer present. Kids taken off the streets and put into adult prisons with no attorney, no parent can talk to them, represent them, nothing, just straight to jail. The vast majority were considered by Palestinians to be political prisoners, many arrested in the West Bank for alleged affiliation with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Fatah, or other groups. So we think you're Hamas, straight to jail. They don't have to prove it. There's no trials.
Yeah.
Nothing. Hundreds were serving long or multiple life sentences for attacks on Israelis. Attacks can include throwing rocks at tanks. Because again, when you control the borders, you control everything that comes in and out. It's not like everybody's running around with ARs.
Right.
Nobody has weaponry. Anything that they have may have been smuggled in. It's probably going to be antiquated. It certainly is not going to compare to one of the largest, most powerful militaries in the world who have drones who can shoot.
Right.
They don't even have to be there in person. Detainees can be held indefinitely without trial. And that's renewable every 6 months. Yep, you're not getting a trial. See you again in 6 months. Over and over and over. Arrest raids in the West Bank had been intensifying throughout 2023 with thousands of people detained in the months leading up to October 7th. Thousands of people swiped, kidnapped, gone. But they took 200. And I'm not comparing apples to apples. I'm kind of weirded out by the idea of being taken captive. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't sit well. I'm not trying to justify that this is okay. But this is historically how they've dealt with each other. And if we are looking at the numbers here, Israel has more power. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to answer to anybody. They're not being abused by the other side. and they've taken exponentially more people. By Palestinian counts, over the years since 1967, more than 800,000 Palestinians have been imprisoned by Israel at some point. That's about 40% of the male population. In 67, I mean, my parents were born before that. Mm-hmm. So we're talking my generation, my kids, and my parents. Since that time, 800,000 Palestinians. Okay. So again, we're just putting out data. We're not trying to say anything at this point. We're just saying. Okay. Let's talk about what happens when people go into these prisons. Are you ready for that?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to go through a list very quickly just to show.
Okay.
Beatings, stress positions, like being forced to stand or kneel for 12 hours. Yeah. And sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme cold or extreme heat, often while stripped naked, electric shocks, threats against family members, mock executions, verbal humiliation, racial or religious slurs, insults targeting dignity, sensory deprivation, blindfolding, hooding, isolation for long periods, overcrowding, lack of food, or deliberate starvation, or serving spoiled food, sexual violence, sometimes with objects, clubs, sticks, batons, rods, and even items that provide electric shock and tools that burn, rape, groping of genitals, invasive cavity searches, restricted access to toilets. So if you can't go to a toilet, where are you pooping and peeing? Because everybody's doing that. Oh, in the room that's so crowded that you can't sit down. Restricted access to toilet, showers, or hygiene products, denial of medical care, even for chronic illnesses or injuries from beatings. Minors often reported being interrogated without lawyers or family, or being pressured into signing confessions in Hebrew, a language they don't read or speak. Released detainees have shown physical signs of severe weight loss, broken bones, and untreated wounds. There are multiple allegations and reports that Israeli forces use dogs or release dogs against Palestinian detainees and civilians, in some cases as part of intimidation, physical attacks, and even alleged sexual violence. Dogs. On the flip side, if you're curious, look into how the released Israeli hostages fared. How did they talk about their time with Hamas? And I will say, pay attention to the timeline because the stories do change over time. Pay attention to what they said at first, and then listen to how the story changes later. They all have the same uptick.
What do you mean?
They say a lot of the same things. They say the way their story changes is the same level of intensity. They come out saying they were treated well, that if they needed medication, they had it. They were fed better than the soldiers who were detaining them. They were honored. The women were honored. I think that they weren't physically touched because they were being honored. Things like that.
And they wouldn't be saying that just to, that they had to say that. Right. They were being forced to say that.
Right. There's videos of releases of them giving tearful farewells to their captors. Even hugs, fist bumps, things like that.
What?
Definitely none coming out with broken bones that haven't been mended. And having electric rods rammed into places. All right. Again, just objective fact. Okay. Here let's put on our tinfoil caps.
Oh gosh.
No, these are, again, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist when you're getting information. Yeah. Here are some suspicious things that happened on October 7th. And these are coming from former Israeli soldiers who are giving testimony. All of these things are being investigated for how long does it take? Because this was 2 years ago. So there's this thing called the Hannibal Directive. It's a controversial IDF protocol saying that in some cases, preventing the capture of Israeli soldiers or hostages is worth using heavy force, even if it ends in loss of life. If you think you're going to get captured, eat the pill, essentially, or take everyone out. Some reports claim that on October 7th, orders were given that not a single vehicle could return to Gaza with captives, effectively blocking escape routes even for hostage convoys. Well, if you don't know which car contains the people exiting, and if they contain hostages or Hamas or Israeli citizens or soldiers, and you're just taking people out in the event that they might be taken across the border, how did we get to 1,200? A lot of the loss of life was Israeli soldiers. And in ways that don't make sense for the weaponry that Hamas would have been holding. We're talking about bodies burned to a crisp, including Hamas. Hamas and Israeli soldiers burned to a crisp. How? Just questions. In February 2025, so earlier this year, Defense Minister Gallant publicly acknowledged that the Hannibal Directive was used that day. Okay. How many of the 1,200 were included in that? We don't know. We'll never know.
Right.
They're not going to tell them themselves. Stand down orders. This is something that the recent Charlie Kirk very openly, publicly discussed. He said, I've been to Israel. I've seen the walls. You can't go 10 feet. I don't know if that's the quote, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, however many feet, without coming across an Israeli teenager with fully armed, essentially. So how did Hamas escape? We've got 20-foot concrete walls, maybe higher than that, huge concrete walls. No one can move without being detected. Cameras, drones everywhere. How did they escape? And not only escape, not get any kind of pushback for 2 hours, 2+ hours. It's called stand down orders. One rumor claims that Israeli troops near Gaza were ordered to stand down from routine patrols, not act as usual on the morning of October 7th, possibly giving militants freer movement. This feeds into a broader claim that there was foreknowledge or a deliberate decision made not to respond more aggressively in advance, so that they could respond the way they wanted to respond to the atrocities.
So we're concluding, theorizing that the Israeli government had prior knowledge to the attack and wanting to be able to respond in a much
if they hate Palestinians and they want them to go away,
they saw an opportunity to be able to start this war. Basically said, bring it.
And what justifies you doing whatever you want? Israel has the right to defend itself. How many times have we heard that? When you have beheaded babies in ovens and women raped and people disemboweled and 1,200 deceased, regardless of how that happened. Let's keep going. Friendly fire. The IDF later admitted some casualties on October 7th were due to friendly fire. Okay, that's vague, but okay. Some hostages claim that Israeli helicopters or ground troops fired upon vehicles or convoys believed to be carrying hostages, thinking they were hostile. A kibbutz, which is like a little community. They live kind of like in a round situation where I think the community center's at the center and then the houses are built in this formation. A kibbutz At a kibbutz, a tank fired on a house known to have hostages and militants, reportedly killing many of the hostages. This operation is under scrutiny as probably being a misapplied version of the Hannibal Directive. And that testimony comes from people in the kibbutz saying, we looked out, we knew we were under attack, we thought it was Hamas, it was Israel, it was Israeli soldiers. All right, so let's talk about what's happened since October 7th. This is an 11-month, this is not current.
Okay.
Because we don't have current numbers, because why would they tell us how much? According to Explosive Weapons Monitor, the IDF has dropped at least 29,000 explosive munitions in Gaza in the first 11 months. So this would be from October
to September
24. Think about a medium-sized U.S. city, say Atlanta, Minneapolis, or Denver. If 29,000 bombs were dropped there over 11 months, that would average out to 85 bombs every single day. And we know there are days that they hit more targets, and then there are days where it's a little calmer, and then there are weeks where it's just incessant all day, all night, just dropping. So way more than 85 a day.
Could you imagine just like the human experience in living in a place where you're just waiting for a bomb to drop? As a child, as a mother, father, brother, like what must be going on internally over an extended amount of time. I mean, think about the actual trauma that's happening. If these people survive, what they'll be left with.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. The PTSD, even if you only had to do it for like 2 days.
But for, at the very least, 11 months.
Yeah.
But 2 years.
And there's videos of parents holding their toddlers, and the toddlers at every sound just like full on flailing and like starting to melt down constantly because they're so used to the bomb noises, and they're looking up and all they see is their ceiling. They're looking up thinking, is it me next? Babies.
Right.
Babies doing this. Yeah, it's unfathomable. Like I cannot wrap my head around that kind of trauma. Official numbers of the deceased right now, the official numbers stand at 50 to 65,000 in Gaza. But that number has not changed since March. Why? Because the way they record, the body has to come through a certain way. And that means they have to come into a hospital. It has to be documented by hospital staff. That's the only way for it to count. Well, first of all, not everybody lives near a hospital.
Sure.
And all the hospitals at this point have been bombed multiple times. I just saw a video yesterday of a drone shooting through a hospital window at medical staff and hits a nurse in the head.
I saw that too.
And he's still alive at this point, but it was a kill shot. Like, he was marked in the hospital. And also, Israeli soldiers have been known to set up posts around the hospital. So any ambulances coming in, any people bringing wounded, deceased, anyone, they just shoot them. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like so why would you take your deceased family member to be officially counted if that means that you're just going to join them?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that? And these poor medical personnel who are targeted, who are day and night around the clock, seeing mutilated bodies, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every single day. Okay, so that's the official count. A recent study came out that says more likely the numbers are close to 680,000 people have died. And they're not just talking about from bombs and gunshot wounds. They're talking about
the living conditions,
starvation because food is not being allowed in. They're talking about disease that's spreading because they don't have toilets and proper ways to dispose of their waste, or they're eating food that is rotten and spoiled because they're starving. Like, they're counting everything, because how can you look at the pictures of a complete, like a total devastation, annihilation of buildings, people, it's just rubble everywhere. How can you look at that and think, oh, this death was probably due to normal circumstances? Everything is at this point. So they're saying the number's probably closer to 680,000. I think the population is only 2.1 million. I would guess it's probably higher than 680,000. And of those 680,000, 380,000, over 50%, are children under the age of 5. We're not even talking 6 to 18. Children, babies under the age of 5. Definitely over 50% are children. Maybe even over 60 to 70% are children. So who are we fighting? What are we doing? They say they're fighting Hamas, but more than half of the people they're killing are babies. What is going on? It's just impossible to wrap your head around. And that leads us into the basic list of core human rights that are being violated. Because I just said, chat, give me a super basic list, like top 10 things, and I'll go through this very quickly. What are basic human rights for every single human being?
Yeah.
And this is agreed upon across the world. Right to life and safety, which that covers a lot. Food, water, protection.
Right.
Right to life and safety, freedom from slavery, freedom from torture or cruel treatment, equality before the law, right to a fair trial, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of assembly and association, right to take part in government, right to education, work, and an adequate standard of living. How many of those has Israel violated? Almost every single one of them. Okay. Thoughts? It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what, I mean, I know we're going to get there too, but like, what can I even do?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like it feels, and especially for someone who just like, it feels paralyzing.
Yeah.
Overwhelming.
Yes.
And what can me?
Yeah.
little old me do?
Yeah. Since I went through the list of core human rights, let's go into the list of what makes a genocide a genocide. Okay. It's a targeted group. It's a specific ethnic, national, racial, or religious group being singled out. Mass killings are large numbers of that group being killed because they belong to that group. Check, check. Serious harm. Is the group suffering torture, sexual violence, or other bodily, mental harm intended to destroy them? Check. Life conditions. Are living conditions being deliberately made unlivable? Starvation, denial of medicine, destruction of homes so that the group cannot survive. Check. Prevention of births. Are there actions to stop the group from having children? Well, children are being murdered more than anyone else. And you saw the pictures, I'm sure, a year ago-ish, maybe longer, of the babies in the incubators, the preemie babies.
I don't know what you're talking
about. In a hospital wing, the preemie wing, the little incubators with all the babies, the Israeli soldiers came and cleared out the hospital staff. They all passed because no one was there to take care of them. So check. Forcible transfer of children. Are children from the group being taken away and placed with another group? Not saying that killed. One. Yeah, they're just being murdered. But yes, no, yeah. Intent. Is there evidence of an intention to destroy the group in whole or part? And the key principle is, if one of the acts above is happening with the intent to destroy the group, it meets the UN's definition of a genocide.
If one?
One.
So where is the UN?
They keep having votes on things, and I'm not 100% sure on the rule, but I think if one country opposes, then they can't do anything. And the United States has opposed every single time. I'm not sure how it works. I'm sure it's a very complex process, but whatever it is that they're trying to do and step in whatever way they can, The U.S. is stopping them at every turn. Other countries have at different points as well, but the U.S. has consistently said no every single time. That's where we get connected to it, because it's our government making decisions on behalf of these people. Our elected officials are putting people in charge of making these decisions on behalf of our neighbors.
And sending monetary support. And
yeah, so yeah, we'll come to that too. Okay, so the question is, let's circle back to the question about Hamas. What about Hamas? This is where I encourage people to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Imagine what it would be like. Look into the people. Google it. And don't just take the propaganda answer. Search for specific quotes from people who are or have been members of Hamas. Why they are there. Get past the political rhetoric and into the individual humans that make up the fighters. I was talking with a friend of mine about this on a Facebook post a while back, and one of the things that I wrote to her that occurred to me in the moment was, if you'll look into the people who make up Hamas, you'll see that they are brothers, sons, husbands, fathers, grandfathers, indigenous orphans, refugees, displaced peoples, people who have had their homes, ancestral lands, and livelihoods stolen, people who held family members in their arms as they died from bombings, sniper shots, lack of access to basic needs like clean water, improper health care, etc., all at the hands of a Zionist Israeli government. In the United States, just consider, if a similar oppression were to occur around us and we were to rally against our oppressors in the exact same way as Hamas has, we would call ourselves militia, vigilantes, patriots, and godly men. If you back any living, breathing, feeling being into a corner, starve and torture them, murder their family in front of their eyes, and watch them turn into the, quote, bad guys. And I looked up quotes. Do you want to hear some of them?
yeah.
Okay. So this is who they say they are in their own words and from interviews and surveys. So these are just direct quotes. We are sons of Gaza. Many emphasize identity tied to a place and survival, not ideology. They see themselves as ordinary people who became fighters because there was no other choice. We are teachers, shopkeepers, students who picked up arms. Studies note that many Hamas fighters joined through family or community ties, not theological conviction. Quote, I am a resistance fighter. They describe themselves as resisting occupation, siege, and displacement. We stand where our father stood. Members often frame themselves as heirs of a national struggle, more about land and dignity than religious destiny. But if you just Google why does Hamas exist, it'll be like jihad and Islamic lands, and like it's all this rhetoric that is not what anyone is saying from the inside.
Well, I'm was thinking that through when we were just talking about the living in a state of fear.
Yeah.
When your body is in continual survival mode, it changes the makeup. Changes your brain.
Yeah.
So I mean it makes sense.
So let's connect the dots. And this is a phrase that chat gave me, but I really like it.
Okay.
When Christians in America shrug, politicians notice. When we wave the flag for Israel and ignore Palestinian suffering, it gives cover for atrocities to continue.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about this. So who we vote for. This was new information to me as of like 5 years ago. Did you know that prior to the 1980s, religious groups, especially evangelicals, weren't explicitly aligned with one political party? Since the creation of the moral majority, which was like 1979, and the religious right, which came in with Reagan, and since all of that came in, now politics is heavily identified with religion. How did we get here?
Right.
Like, wasn't it supposed to be separation of church and state? Like, weren't there many dialogues about the dangers of allowing these two things to become enmeshed with one another?
Yep.
So let's just think through that. And now it's a machine. Align with these causes, get these votes. You're guaranteed these votes because you say these causes, whether you really believe them or not, whether you're actually going to do what you say you're going to do or not.
Right.
How many politicians have been elected under the guise of Christianity, and then they get up in there and they do whatever they want.
Right.
They're not held accountable, nothing. You were elected. Because all you have to do is appeal to this group of people because now they're heavily associated with one another. But prior to that, it wasn't that way. Christians and religious people ebbed and flowed back and forth between Democrat and Republican depending on the issues of their day and what they felt conviction about.
Sure.
But now all of the religious issues and convictions are on one side.
Right.
That can't be it.
Right.
There's no checks and balances in that. People can exploit you, and they do.
Right.
For your vote. All right, let's go into this. This is technical, but it's important. If you've heard of APAC, APAC is a lobbying organization in Washington, D.C. I am not a government person. You say lobbying, it's Chinese. I've gone out the door, out the window. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk about numbers. It's that kind of thing. I'm just going to cut it off. But let me break it down into like super everyman language that helped me understand. AIPAC's goal is to strengthen and secure U.S.-Israel relations. That is all they're there for. Mainly through the influencing of U.S. policy and lawmakers. How are they doing that? AIPAC meets with members of Congress to push pro-Israel policies, funding, and legislation. How are they doing that? Through funding their campaigns. Our politicians who we have elected have been bought by AIPAC to vote in a specific way about anything pertaining to Israel. In the 2024 election, 65% of Congress received money from AIPAC and affiliated groups. That's more than half. Isn't that how the votes go?
Yeah. Majority
receive money from AIPAC or affiliated groups when they vote on things like, I don't know, the $3.8 billion of our tax dollars that go into the Israel military every single year. $3.8 billion. And other things are voted on. Israel gets a lot of money from the United States. AIPAC makes sure that happens. And I've even heard that it's more than 65% now. It's up in the 80% now. I don't have a verified source saying that, but I've seen it on several things. I'd like to track it down and see if that's true. All right, so that's how we vote. We're a democratic society. We vote, and our vote affects things. Well, our votes right now aren't really mattering because AIPAC's paying everybody off to get Israel whatever they want whenever they want it. How? And again, these are questions that now even conservative
pundits
are talking about a lot of, like, why are we fighting somebody else's war? Why do they have free health care and go to school for free? And we have all these housing issues. Like, why are they in a better situation than us and we're pouring our dollars into them? Great questions. Keep asking them. Keep talking about it. So that's how we vote. How you vote can help people in Palestine. Can stop a machine, an empire, from wreaking havoc on innocent civilians. It can stop that. And you can say, I'm not going to vote for you because of this one issue. And if you say that, yeah, you're one voice saying that. But then what if 300,000 people say that? And their inboxes and phone calls and postcards coming to their offices are saying, I don't support genocide, period, end of story. I will not vote for you. And you have a history of voting this way. How much money have you taken from AIPAC?
Right.
Like, start calling things what they are and saying, nope, not anymore. Not in my name. It's interesting, too, to think through the history of this. I would say do some searches. I have, for another project, I was looking at microfilm at the library the other day. And it was fascinating. I was back in the 90s and the 70s, and wouldn't you know, all over the newspapers from the 90s and the 70s was the name Israel everywhere. Ads, articles, Israel was everywhere. Wild. I didn't have time to stop and look at what they were talking about. But why did I see Israel over and over and over again? I only went through 2 months in 1 year in the 90s.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay. Where we spend our money speaks volumes. So there are some major organizations that are either owned by people who support the Zionist cause, or they themselves are Zionists, or they contribute a lot of money to Israel. McDonald's, Starbucks, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Hewlett-Packard, Booking.com, Airbnb, Expedia, all of these people, you can trace some major amounts of money to Israel and their ties to Israel. So one of the more successful ventures is everybody, I think it was in the early days, that somebody at a Starbucks who worked at a Starbucks, I don't remember exactly what happened. They had a Gaza pin, or they said something about free Palestine or something like that. And I can't remember if they got fired. It was a big thing. And Starbucks came out and said, we stand with Israel. The entire world started boycotting Starbucks.
Wow.
And stuck with it. To the point, they say there's no correlation here, but it was just announced last month that Starbucks just announced the closing of hundreds of stores in the U.S. and Canada.
Wow.
Because their profits are down and they're having to reassess. They say it's not connected. There's no way it's not. So it works. Where you spend your money works. And I know it's impossible. We live in a capitalistic society. Everything's connected to everything else. But even just making one decision, or seeing, really rally around the things that other people are doing too, to help make that impact even bigger.
Sure.
You're voting with your dollars. And our dollars are dropping bombs on Gaza right now. So vote with your dollars in other ways if you can.
Yeah.
State it plainly. Our silence and indifference is not neutral. It costs lives. So just state it. If you're a person who posts on social media, I love this too. I've seen so many things saying it's never too late to change your mind. Nobody is going to say, well, it's about time if 2 years into this conflict, you finally say something about, I completely disagree with what Israel's doing, or I stand against genocide, or I free Palestine. No one is going to be like, what have you been doing for 2 years? Yeah. It's never too late to change your mind. Say it plainly if you're a person who is comfortable with doing that. Or I share a lot of stories that I see because I follow a lot of journalists in Gaza. So anything that I see that's not, I was sharing gore heavy stuff at first because I'm like, if they have to see it, we can see it too. But now I don't want people to just not look. I'd rather them get some information than none. So I share it in my stories when I see things that connect to my life, when I see children my kids' ages, when I hear stories that are moving, when I see things that are just atrocious, like the doctor getting shot in the head. Why are we shooting our nurse? Why are we shooting nurses in hospitals? Like, that seems like a major violation. Share things in that way. Put a watermelon on your car, or on your mailbox, or on your backpack that you carry all the time. A watermelon sticker. They're all over Etsy. There's watermelon lapel pins. There's watermelon earrings, watermelon bracelets. Like, just the more people who are doing it, the more it will be unacceptable to not do it, to not be a part of the movement. We can't walk up to the border right now and put our bodies on the line for these people and say, I'm taking food in there, shoot me if you want to. We can't do that. There is a flotilla, like dozens of boats headed with people from all over the world, headed right now into Israeli waters, putting their bodies on the line. I mean, it's beautiful. They could die. They could be bombed because they crossed into Israel's waters. The very least that we can do is try and talk about it, say something, like put our float into international or into Israeli waters with our social media accounts or with our bracelets or with our earrings or with our, just again, the things tend to go. We recorded an earlier conversation about this and people were not talking about it at that point. Yeah. Now everybody's kind of talking about it and asking questions. Why? Because the more people that start doing it, the more come in.
Awareness.
Yes. It's easier to attach to something that already looks successful. So be a part of the thing that's making it successful so that more people can say, why are you putting a watermelon on everything? What does that mean? So I'm going to go through a list of quotes of Christian leaders on apathy itself, because I think it's important that we hone in on the fact that choosing nothing is still choosing something. Yeah. Okay, we'll start with Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it." In short, for King, apathy equals complicity. He consistently called people out of passivity and into moral courage, insisting that silence in the face of injustice is itself a form of injustice. On to Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who actually died at the hands of the Nazis. He was a German pastor and theologian, spoke often of a cheap grace or a faith that required nothing of us, and warned that the church's apathy towards injustice enabled the rise of Nazism. He said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." Desmond Tutu, who lived in apartheid South Africa, said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." That's a very famous one. Pope Francis of the Catholic Church said, "Almost without being aware of it, we end up being incapable of feeling compassion, and indifference has taken over our hearts." So if you don't want to lose that human compassion, you have to face things and make decisions about things. Mother Teresa from India said, "The greatest evil is the lack of love and charity, the terrible indifference towards one's neighbor." And William Wilberforce, a British abolitionist, said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know." Such good words. So all of that to say, I encourage you, listeners, watchers, don't just take our word for it. We're sitting here laying this out. This has been our process, whatever. Don't take our word.
So I think a big reason of how we got here, kind of piggybacking on the idea of apathy, is that we weren't taught to think for ourselves. And, you know, I may be, well, no. Why do I feel like I have to give my background every time?
That's good.
A lot of us grew up in Christian schools, private schools, churches, and you were handed a frame. You were handed a worldview, and the answers were valued more than the questions. And that left us with valuing certainty over curiosity, and taking things at face value from people in authority, people put in authority, rather than encouraging us to think for ourselves, think critically, and question. And so I think that's how we got here. You know, I feel like the application is when you start, you know, this is a hot topic. I'm nervous about, and part of my personality, but who's gonna hear this? Mm-hmm. And so I'm feeling everything in my body when we're talking about these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And so I think I would encourage anybody listening, to check in with your body right now. When we're talking about these things, what's happening? Are you resisting? And why? Why are you automatically feeling like you need to side with one or the other? And then being willing to stay in that tension and say, what do I know? And like you said, Google. Take 5 minutes and Google and find out what is happening. And then find out what you can do.
And I think when you said too, it's taught what to think, not how to think, and to listen to people who've been placed in positions of authority. I think that's so important to stop there, because what authority do you have? As if you consider yourself a believer, is Christ in you? What authority does he have over the person in authority? And I'm not trying to make a hierarchy here. Do you have the Holy Spirit? Does the Holy Spirit speak to you?
Right.
That means that you can question, and your thoughts and the way that you process things and work through things is marked by the Holy Spirit. And that's valuable. And if we're going to get into it, which we're not, I'm just going to throw it out there. Hello, Kingdom of Priests. Kingdom of Priests means that a pastor on a stage may at some times be the person to speak into a situation, but not every time, because you're a pastor too. You have the authority of Christ. You have the Holy Spirit. You can critically think. You can read the Bible for yourself. You can think about the qualities of God. I wrote them down. Loving, merciful, righteous, just, faithful, good, patient, telling us, becoming more like him, putting him on, reflecting him to other image bearers, them reflecting him to us. Like, we can take these things and put them together and make decisions, and it may not match what the person at the pulpit is saying.
Right.
Like, that's important to empower you and us and each other as the body of Christ, that we can function like the body regardless of what's being said from the pulpit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think we already hit on that about, like, if I ask, will I be labeled? Well, this says, will I be labeled a traitor? If I doubt, will I lose my community? Like, I think those are real questions that people struggle with.
And concerns. Like, you can.
Yeah.
Right. It can happen.
Yeah.
You could be, is it blackballed? Is that the right? You could be ousted. You could be rejected. You could be shunned. You could become a traitor. That's great phrasing. And if you become a traitor, then what?
Right.
For believing that people shouldn't be slaughtered, children shouldn't be murdered.
Or even just taking the stance of valuing or obeying what Jesus said to do, rather than hold to a political viewpoint. It's mind-boggling. One thing that I've been wanting to get to is that the whole, like, pray for Israel thing, and how for the last 2 years, I'm feeling a wave, but it's like, you know, when I watch church services or whatever, it's like there's intentional time to pray for Israel. And I just think, what about, like, all those things that you just went through, all those children, all these families that are, like, living in a continual state of survival? Why aren't we praying for them?
Yeah.
Even, let's say, even if you do believe that these things are true, like that we should pray for Israel, that those, you know, we bless Israel, God will bless us. Even, can you hold those things simultaneously? Like, pray for Israel, but also pray for Gaza, because they're image bearers. Why can't we do both?
Yeah, why can't you pray for the leadership of Israel to actually look like God in any capacity? Why can't you pray for the bombs to stop dropping, or the food to go through the border?
Yes.
Yeah. Without, like, you don't have to demonize Israel, which many have, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Like, if they're actually doing all the things.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Or demonizing either side. It's like,
yeah.
Why? Yes, pray for peace, but pray for peace from both perspectives.
Yeah. And peace isn't just the absence of war, it's wholeness.
Right.
And I can't imagine that a single human being living in the walls of Gaza right now will ever experience true wholeness for this life. Because how can you survive that and see that much death and bloodshed and devastation and come out unscathed? How?
Right. Well, like, okay, so how we got here, I posed these things to chat, like, how do we get here? What has not shifted in our thinking? Like, what are we still holding on to? What needs to shift? What hasn't shifted is we still outsource thinking, which we already kind of touched on. But instead of really thinking critically and coming to conclusions based on information we've found, we're outsourcing our thinking to preachers and politicians.
I like that, the way you frame that. Interesting.
And then many confuse loyalty to inherited ideas with loyalty to Jesus.
Oh.
So we're connecting this faithfulness, this loyalty to, I've been given this system to believe, and I stay loyal to this. I don't change. And I connect that to my loyalty to Jesus, when in fact, what Jesus is asking of us looks very different than this system we've been given.
Do you have an example?
Yeah. Love your neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. And think through the neighbors that Jesus was loving.
Yes.
Was he running towards the politicians, the empire, the wealthy? Not that they never crossed his path. Right. Who was he? What direction was he going at all times?
Well, he was going in both directions, but I think his message was different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. But the people he was healing and sitting with and eating with and telling things that changed their existence, it was always the marginalized, the misunderstood, the unheard, the forgotten, the abused. It wasn't the powerful.
Right.
It wasn't the people with big militaries.
Right.
It wasn't the people with lots of friends and lots of resources.
Yep.
So to think through, because love your neighbor, it's easy to say, well, I'm loving Israel.
Yeah, who is your neighbor?
Who is your neighbor? And I like that you put that too. Like, why can't we pray? If Jesus is the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Wholeness, does anything about this situation, is there wholeness in it in any capacity other than Israel gets what it wants? Is that wholeness?
That's not wholeness.
Yeah.
We need to keep asking questions, like you've said so brilliantly. Like, be willing at whatever cost to ask the questions. Yeah. I think an important thing too along those lines is we have to be aware of what we're ingesting. So where are you getting your information? And, media has set us up to fail because our big news outlets are just giving us what we want to hear. And it's like we're in an echo chamber. We search for information that we want to hear. So we've got a lot of confirmation bias going on. And so look at like, if you're listening to Fox News, well, that's not even, because it's like, listen to CNN and MSNBC, but I feel like all the major news outlets are biased.
Oh yeah.
And maybe we have some resources to give.
Yeah.
But try to find information as much as you can that is not from biased news organizations, I guess.
Western media even.
Yeah.
Because the West is clearly aligned with the rhetoric of Israel. And we know, like, there have been so many stories and things, not just the beheaded babies and the rapes and all the things, but there have been so many things pumped out of Israel that are propaganda, period, end of story. We know that they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on YouTube ads that play across my kids' screens when they're watching something and the ad comes up and it's a pro-Israel ad. Like, for this particular conflict. I'm like, why are my children seeing this? So that's propaganda. And all the lies that make you side with Israel, all the things that they say are happening. Like they're saying it's not a genocide. They're saying there's no starvation. They're saying all these things. That's propaganda to make you believe, because it fits your narrative, that they're actually doing this holy thing, that this is a holy war. And so it gives you just enough so that you can excuse whatever they're doing, so that you can go about your day and pretend it's not happening and carry on. And actually that propaganda, which it will all in the end be exposed, just like the propaganda from World War II and Nazi Germany. It will all be exposed, and we'll all see it for what it really is. But at that point, will it be too late?
Right.
Will 0 Palestinians exist, except the ones who were able to escape before October 7th, 2023? Like, then what? Then it's just like, oh, well, 2.1 million people. That was the most recent world war. Like how did we get here? Like, you cannot just look at what they're telling you, because just like politicians are bought.
Yeah.
Now, the as of a couple days ago, the person who's now going to run the U.S. branch of TikTok is a Zionist. That means Israel is going to own the information that's coming through TikTok. So I would say find news coming out of the region. Find news, find the journalists. Okay, this is the plug, which I was going to give you later, but I can now. If you go to wayfindco.com, every episode that we do has its own episode page. Go to wayfindco.com/Palestine, and all the resources that we talk about here will be listed. I'm also going to link many of the Instagram accounts that I follow that are people living on the ground in Gaza. Listen to the people. Listen to the people who have no power. All they have is a cell phone to show you what's happening. I will also share some videos throughout the timeline of the last 2 years that have been particularly impactful to me. So you can go follow those accounts or watch those accounts, or just click on the account, scroll through it, see what you see. You don't have to follow them, but just see how different the information is coming off the ground versus what you're seeing if you watch the news, which I do not, but what you're seeing on the news. And let's just give a second to remember, everybody's algorithm is tailored to you, right, to what you've clicked on before, to what it thinks you want to see, and what it can show the exact same event from 15 different perspectives depending on who it thinks you are.
The algorithm is actually like the perfect example of an extreme confirmation bias funnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it continues to confirm what it thinks you're wanting it to confirm.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to work a little bit harder to go outside of the bounds of what you normally would look at to find what's actually happening.
Yeah.
The truth of the situation.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I think that's important that you do that. And when you do those Google searches that we talked about, like search for things like Gaza hospitals bombed. Just search that up. How many hospitals in Gaza have been bombed? Find the name of one of the hospitals and then search up. How many times has that, put in the name, paste in the name, hospital been bombed by Israel since October 7th, 2023? And just like keep going. Then you see something else that triggers you. Search up that specific thing. Find the name of a doctor who was in the middle of a surgery when Israeli forces walked in, took him out as a prisoner. He goes to the prison and is never seen or heard from again. A surgical medical doctor. Why? Why are we arresting that person? And just follow the rabbit. Follow the rabbit. See what you find.
Yeah.
Be curious. Care enough about your neighbor to go on a deep dive of these things.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing is that Jesus calls us to compassion. He doesn't call us to defend nations, to join a political cause. Like you said, if anything, he did the opposite. He asked us to love our neighbor. And I love this. Neighbor is defined by need, not by borders. Like the Good Samaritan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're being called to be the Good Samaritan.
Yeah. Absolutely.
some other passages, Matthew 25, I was hungry, I was thirsty, I was a stranger. And what are we doing with those things? And then when we think about the Beatitudes, the kingdom belongs to the poor, the merciful, the peacemakers. Like these are all scriptural groundings that you can go back to that call you to a place of action, meaning compassion and understanding and questioning.
Yeah. I think too, because so many people are so staunchly pro-life in this area, I would beg you to ask yourself, what does pro-life mean? Are you pro-life, all of life? Are you pro-birth? Because if you're pro-birth, tell me about the babies in the incubators. Why are we not fighting about that? Tell me about the pregnant woman who was run over by a tank until the baby popped out of her and both were killed. Are we even if our pro-life means pro-birth, that is being violently
anti-life.
Absolutely. But if we're pro-life, more than half of the people slaughtered are children under 5. I feel like that still kind of fits in the pro-birth category. But then what about, the old people, the husbands, the wives, the young men and young women who have, all of them who have had 2 years of no school, no jobs, no ways to provide for their family. To show up to get food aid is also like fish in a barrel. Military outposts set up and just shoot people as they're there to get aid. I mean, like, it just seems there's no questions to ask. There's all the questions to ask, and there's also no question. Like, what does it mean to be pro-life? What does it mean to love your neighbor? What does it mean to be a Jesus person? What does it mean to think critically about what's happening? I don't care who Israel is or says they are. Would the God of the Bible stand by any of this? Would he condone any of this? And where would Jesus be in the midst of it all? Would he be signing bombs on the other side of the wall that are going to be dropped on children? Or would he be huddled around the children as the bombs are falling? We know where Jesus would be, which means if we're his people living as his hands and feet in the world, what are we doing with our bodies?
Yeah. And maybe the first question to ask is, where do you find yourself aligning with? Like, do you feel more comfortable aligning with the powerful or aligning with the vulnerable?
Yeah, that is hard. Because aligning with the vulnerable is very uncomfortable.
Right.
Until you start doing it. And then it becomes, it's like rose-colored glasses. Like, once those come off, it's like everything's different. Yeah. But it is a hard first step to take, especially if you've not done it before. Right. And that is what the kingdom of God is about. Aligning with the vulnerable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So here we are at the end. These are calls to action. You've mentioned several times, like, what can I do? We've given a few examples. But we're going to just go over this one more time. Do one search this week and look at what's happening in Gaza. If something we said, like something in particular, sparked your attention, follow that rabbit. Just look up something and then hold enough space for this cause to allow you to follow more rabbits. So conversations are so important, right? Posts are important if you're a posting person, even if you share stories, whatever. Dollars, how you spend your dollars, important. Here's a particular challenge that you will hate me for, but I encourage you to do it and see what happens, just for curiosity's sake. if you attend a congregation that often tells you to pray for Israel or updates on headlines about Israel, etc., ask your church leadership. Send them an email. Pull them aside. However you communicate best. Ask the church leadership why they only discuss the suffering of Israel and not the suffering of the Palestinians. Just start there. See what they say. Start to challenge the people in positions of power, not in order to fight them, because you're embodying Christ, because your curiosity is leading you to run to the marginalized. Ask on their behalf, why are we only praying for Israel, who is not having bombs dropped on them, who's not starving, who has clean water, whose children are safe and attending school? Why aren't we talking about the suffering in Palestine? If we can talk about one, surely we can talk about the other. And if we talk about both, let's talk about both.
Right.
But at least acknowledge the other side. Yep. And if you do that, please update me with how it goes for you, because I want to know. Find an actual protest and show up. There are pro-Palestine protests everywhere. They're usually in bigger cities. But there are also, like, for example, No King's Day. That is a local protest. People show up to those and they're protesting everything. Some are protesting ICE and what ICE is doing to our immigrant neighbors. Some are protesting Palestine. Some are protesting, saying release the Epstein files. Everything is being protested at a No King's Day protest. And those are in little cities everywhere. And there are bigger ones in big cities. They're very fun. The posters are always a good time. They are brilliant and keep us laughing. So take pictures of the posters and just expand your horizons into what your local neighbors are passionate about here, and have conversations with them. You will learn so much, because for every single person who is as impassioned about Palestine as I am and has done the digging like I have, there are other people equally as passionate about all the other things going on that can teach you so much. So go be a student and learn about what people are passionate about. You'll find Jesus walking everywhere in these places, because these are people who are fighting for the rights of the marginalized. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen at other types of protests as well, but I've seen it pretty blatantly at these, and it's very encouraging. If you're a praying person, absolutely, you can pray for Israel. Definitely pray for the survivors in Gaza, to continue to survive, to continue to be able to provide for their families or protect their families. How do you protect your families? To be able to get a night of sleep without the buzzing of drones, so that they can effectively escape something that might fall tomorrow, to find food, to find peace, to feel security or safety or the hands of Jesus wrapped around them. Just try and put yourself in their shoes for 0.5 seconds and think about what you would like the most. Try to align your heart. And I don't use that word like that often. Try and align your humanity with someone, a Palestinian who is in your exact same situation on the other side. A mom of 4 kids, 2 teenage boys, a teenage daughter, a preteen daughter, a husband who would absolutely put his body on the line to protect us or to feed us or whatever. Like, I cannot fathom what they're enduring and have been enduring for, what's 365 times 2 days. Yeah. How? Ask yourself and do the thought experiment of, where would Jesus be in this story? Think about it. Find a way to protest. Words, posts, conversations. The most pro-Israel person that you know, if it's your parent or your grandparent, sit down and have a conversation and be curious. You're not there necessarily to educate them. You're there to hear them and then say, oh, I just read that blah, 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 and just see where it lands. Because a tiny, tiny little chip in a windshield will eventually turn into a crack, which will eventually break the windshield and will need to be replaced. Mm-hmm. So plant little seeds of curiosity and confusion, and share what you've seen and how your heart broke at something. Just start conversations. And the more people who are doing that, the more people who are going to ultimately join the movement. And we can stop it. We can stop it.
Well, and I think even beyond that, when the dust settles and hopefully there's wholeness, what is the story that you want to be telling about how you were involved in this?
Absolutely. How often have you think, what were my grandparents doing
during slavery?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when, and we keep using the example of the Holocaust because it's so closely, how did the people who suffered intense trauma and probably didn't deal with their trauma, how did their descendants go on to commit the same atrocity, not 2-3 generations later, to another group of people? Is that where we are? But that's where we are.
Right.
So what will the stories be told about you and what you were doing when this was happening? Because it's going in the history books.
Right.
It is happening. And right now it feels shaky. The ground feels shaky. And it feels like people are going to hate me. Mm-hmm. People are going to ostracize me if I say something about Israel. The way of Jesus is often being the only fish swimming upstream.
Right.
Even amongst the other.
That's pretty much a promise.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you will experience this if you do these things in my name.
Yeah.
And I want to just have a little kind of rabbit trail real quick. For me, and speak into this to help correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I have to figure out who's right or who's wrong in this situation politically. Like, what my questions are going to do, if I have to figure out, is this of biblical proportions? Does this have to do with prophecy? Like, I don't think I have to weigh that.
Yeah.
In order to be true to what a Jesus follower should be doing today.
Yeah.
Like, I think I can do these things that you've said. I should be doing these things that you've said because I am a Jesus follower. Whether or not these other outcomes that we have questions about, Hamas, terrorism, like
what happened on October 7th.
Yes. Yeah. I think we can still do these things and should be doing these things regardless.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree. And even if all you're doing is assessing a situation that you have no perspective on, and you see that a group of people are being annihilated.
Exactly.
Run to the marginalized.
Right.
Run as fast as you can. Do the thing that you assume Jesus would do.
Yeah. This has been another episode of You Don't Know, a Wayfind Collective podcast, where we're foolish enough to believe that loving your neighbor includes the ones your government is bombing. Did this episode cause you to have a rant, a revelation, or a rebuke? Do you think we're heretics and the reason the rapture is delayed? Go ahead and slide right on into our DMs and let us hear all about it. Find this episode's resource list at wayfindco.com/Palestine. We packed in as much as we could without crashing the site. Huge shout out to Heidi Zimmerman, who keeps it all running beautifully. And don't miss Stats with Steph over on our Instagram at wayfindco. She cooked up a special one just for this episode. Love sacred mischief? Send this to your favorite heathens and help fund the revolution, or at least the podcast, at wayfindco.com. Produced and edited by Lindsay Migliori and Deanna West. Graphics by Rebecca Williamson. Website design by Bliss and Tell Creative. Wayfind Collective, uncovering truth in the places the church has forgotten and standing beside the people it's left behind. No pun intended.